by raising your hand, either in person or remote, and I will notify the public per the Massachusetts public meeting laws. Do we have anyone who is making a recording today? Okay. Seeing none, we will begin tonight with our land acknowledgement.
Thanks. Falmouth Public Schools and the Falmouth School Committee acknowledge that we are gathering on the unceded ancestral land of the Wampanoag Nation. We recognize and respect the Wampanoag people, including those of Sakanessa, Waquoit, Sippawisset, Connecticut, and Chappaqua, as original stewards of what is now known as the town of Falmouth, and honor their enduring relationship with this land. This land acknowledgement is an intentional act to counter the erasure of Indigenous people and to demonstrate respect for their sovereign rights. We're committed to educating ourselves and our students about the long-standing history of the Wampanoag people. In alignment with the core values of the Falmouth Public Schools, we pledge to build an ongoing partnership with the Wampanoag Nation. Thank you so much. And our mission and vision, Margaret.
The Falmouth Public Schools creates world-class student learning experiences. Our Clippers are empowered to pursue their goals with curiosity, integrity, and resilience. Clippers are creative, inquisitive, and engaged learners who participate in their community as socially responsible citizens. Clippers effectively communicate and solve problems that impact the world around them.
And Terry, do you have some comments from our students?
Okay, I will read two that I just pulled out of the fishbowl. The maroon means it's something that would make your school life better. This is Caligura from Falmouth High School, who's in grade 11. And she said what would make school more, what they said would make school better for them was more film and better food in the lunches. And yeah, it says film. Okay. What is going well in your school? A 10th grader at Falmouth High School said, I like my classes because the teachers are all different. That's very astute. That's very astute. Thank you very much for your comments from the high school today.
Great, thank you, Terry. And so then we'll move on to public comments. So members of the public are welcome to speak about items that are not on the agenda. Comments should be limited to 2 minutes in length. Due to the open meeting law, there will be no debate or action taken on public comment items. For items on the agenda, the chair may accept comments from the public following the committee's discussion of an item. Additional comments and feedback can also be submitted by email to schoolcommittee@falmouth.k12.ma.us. Do we have any public comment in person or remote participants? Please raise your hand. All right. Seeing none, we will move on to an update on the Juul lawsuit from the Franz Law Group. And I think Mary, leading that up?
Yep, attorney Shana from the Franz Law Group out in California is supposed to be joining us. And I was going to run through.
Oh, there, yep,
is
there
he
he is.
there?
Yeah. Here he comes.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Attorney Shana, thank you for joining us. I was going to say good evening, but I know it's 3:30 where you are.
Yeah.
So this is the Falmouth School Committee, and I'm Mary Dans. We have communicated over email. I really appreciate you being here. I just am going to run through some questions that I thought might help you give the school committee a better understanding of what the lawsuit entails. I will start. So can you just provide some background about the lawsuit, what it does entail, and how many school districts are involved overall?
Yeah, absolutely. So some background about the case is we've been handling this litigation now for 2.5 years. This is what's called a multi-district litigation. This is not a class action. So we're not asking you to join onto a case and then get a nice gift card at the end of the day. Each school district that's involved in this case, we file its own complaint in federal court. But what happens in this situation is all the cases have been consolidated into one courtroom in the Northern District of California, where we've been litigating it for the past 2.5 years, as I said. And we actually have our first trial coming up in November 7th of this year. Currently, there's over 1,000 school districts involved in this litigation. I myself represent over 850 of those school districts in 38 states. And so that's kind of where we're at right now in this litigation.
Thank you. I know that 2 school districts from Massachusetts have joined maybe a little over a year ago. Are there any other school districts from Massachusetts that have joined?
Yeah, so this month and then next month, presenting to between 30 to 40 more school districts from the state that will be joining. Or voting to join at least.
Voting to join. Do you have any additional school districts from Massachusetts already voted to join?
I do not believe so yet. You're the first of my list that I'm going to be going through.
Okay. You mentioned that it's not a class action. Can you just describe a little bit more about the distinction between a mass action and a class action?
Yeah, of course. The most important part is the ending of how these cases work and what the remedy that comes of the class action versus the mass action. The class action, you'll have 1 or 2 representatives of this group of plaintiffs that will represent the class. And at the end of the day, if there is a resolution to it, there will be a sum of money that would then be parsed out equally between all the members of the class, and the attorneys will take 40% of that between 20 to 40% of that. And so, and that's kind of done as an efficient method. But for this type of case, we did not believe that it would qualify, number one, as a class action because the harm to every school district is different. Some districts have bigger vaping problems than others. But what was really important to us was getting the best resolution possible for each district. And so that could only be done in this type of format of a mass action, because if there is a resolution, it would be up to the school committee at the end of the day whether they want to be involved in a resolution. If not, we continue on with that litigation. Class action, you really don't have that option as much in this type of scenario. So we were trying to get as much funds as possible for each school district at the end of the day, and this was the method that we believed was the best.
Thank you. Can you explain your contingency fee arrangement and how there is no financial output or risk to the school district unless there is, of course, a judgment or a settlement?
Of course. So the way our contingency fee works is that the district, if let's say at the end of the day, there is no financial resolution or financial recovery for your school district, then the school district pays no fees, pays no costs. We end up responsible for all the costs that we expended on the case. If there is a recovery, our attorney fee would come out of that recovery before we would send the rest to the district. But the other important aspect of it is the standard of handling plaintiff litigation, the fee is normally 40%. But for my practice, the public entity practice, we've reduced our fee to 25% to make sure that as much amount of funds was going to the district. So the bottom line is there will never be general funds that are used in this case, and there's no financial risk to the district to be involved.
Thank you. And as I understand it, as a mass action, so assuming the school committee voted to join, Falmouth would file its own complaint in federal court in Boston, and then that would get transferred to Consolidated to California. Would we have an opportunity to review that complaint before it's filed?
Absolutely.
And you did share with me a document. So if the district were to agree to join the lawsuit, there's a questionnaire that districts have to fill out that talks about student discipline related to vaping and a variety of questions. Above and beyond that, is there, what's the typical time commitment for a district? And for example, is there a chance that a school district representative might be required to testify at a deposition? And if that were the case, would they have to go to California or would it be virtual? Just those kinds of things, the time commitment.
Right. Okay. So as I said, we already have 6 school districts that have been selected as the bellwether trials, the first trials, and those are set through the end of 2023. For every other district that's involved in this case, The only time obligation to be involved is to fill out what you were discussing, which is the plaintiff fact sheet. And that's the court-ordered discovery questionnaire. That's a court order, that's what's required. And nothing more can be asked of a school district that's a non-bellwether beyond that questionnaire. For a district your size, it should take your staff about an hour to complete. And so that's the only time obligation to be involved. So there won't be any depositions, court appearances, having to turn over mass documents. There'll be none of that since you're not a trial case.
Thank you. And if the suit is successful and a settlement is reached or a judgment is issued, can you explain again how the funds would be distributed, and would we be required to specifically prove damages caused by Juul products in particular?
Yeah. So if there is a resolution at the end of the day of this case, there will be a number of factors that will determine, how much your district gets. Because as I said, if you wouldn't be going to a jury, so we're not having to go and prove those types of damages. But there's going to be factors that will determine whether you get more or less. There will be student population, what the vaping numbers have been in the past, any funds that have been expended related to vaping to date. Those will be factors that will be determinative of how much you would get. But once the funds are received by the district, it'll be up to the district of how those funds would end up being used. There's not going to be an obligation on the district to use those funds. Our hope would be that they can be used towards vaping related, but there's not going to be someone accounting how those funds are used at the end of the day.
So there are no limitations on what the money can be used for?
Correct.
And again, would we be required, so let's say vaping is certainly an issue in the district, but what if we can't connect it to Juul products? Is that a requirement in order to recover?
That's going to be our job of going and looking at other data outside. And so specifically like their sales data in your area, other factors that we'll look at that we've hired experts for to determine those issues.
Okay. And so you said you have the bellwether districts and you have the first trial November 7th. What's the overall timeline and what do you perceive as the likelihood of success overall? Yeah,
so what I can tell you is the defendants in this case, so just so you understand who the defendants are, so there's Juul, that's one of the defendants in this case. The other defendant in this case is Altria. Altria, you may know, they own Philip Morris, Marlboro. They own 33% of Juul. They invested $13.5 billion in the company. The other defendants are the founders and directors of Juul, who've made billions off this company. They had their last attempt to try to stop this case from going to trial on Friday through what's called a motion for summary judgment. That's to go and say there's no legal issues to move forward with this case. The judge denied all the defendants' motions for summary judgment. That included a RICO cause of action against Altria and the founders, which is a very rare cause of action to be able to go to trial into cases like this. You only saw that in the tobacco litigation. So this case is moving forward towards trial unless there's a resolution. And with the evidence we have to date, I believe we should be very successful in these trials. And so let's say we're successful in the trial. It's going to be a 1.5 month long trial. The purpose of these trials is really to give both sides an opportunity to understand how these cases will go, because they do have a right, if they really wanted to try all 1,000 of these cases. That rarely does happen, but we'll understand the strengths and weaknesses, the value of what these cases are if this was to go to a jury, each one of these cases, so it can get to some sort of resolution at the end of the day. So what I could see happening is, if we don't resolve it before this first trial, is after this first trial, if there is a large verdict, that there becomes the discussions of resolution. It might take another trial, but I could see some movement towards a resolution during next year.
So when you say resolution, you're talking basically like a settlement?
Correct.
Those are all of my questions.
Does anyone else in the committee have questions?
I do. Hi, thanks for being with us. So my one question is based on the last comment that you made. If they select to then try each of the 1,000 cases, then what is the district's obligation to participate? What would that look like in terms of time commitment from
Of course.
staff?
So based off of what's already happened with the 6 school districts that have done their cases, that have gone through the discovery process before a trial, we now have an understanding of what it looks like for a district. What is the time obligation? Who's going to be deposed? What kind of documents they're going to want? What are the questions that are going to be asked, written? We then can go to the district, because if this case isn't resolved after these first 6, there will be another 6 selected. And let's just say, hey, your district is selected in that next 6. We would then come to you and say, this is what the time obligation looks like. Does your district want to continue on with this case? Or is this not the time? You don't have really the time to be involved. If you tell me, no, we really just don't have the staff time to do this, we would go and dismiss your case, and the district would pay no fees and no costs.
Okay, thank you.
And how are the districts selected? Who selects the districts?
So the plaintiffs, we select 3. The defendants select, well, no, I'm sorry. We select 6. The defendants select 6. And then the judge chooses from those 6, from those 12, the 6.
So if that were to happen, we would be able to withdraw though at any time?
Correct.
If it was, okay, thank you.
Leah, you have your hand up.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, can we join after the cases have gone through, or do we have to do that right now?
That's a good question. So that's the distinction I forgot to discuss between a class action and a mass action. So a class action, if a case resolves, if you're a member of the class, all you got to do is opt in, and then you can get the benefit of the case, whatever those funds are. With a mass action, if you are not involved in the case, you do not get the benefit. So we could wait for after this first trial, but if there's a resolution before the trial, during the trial, and you're not involved in the case at that point, then you would not be able to get the benefits out of this case.
Thank you.
Of course.
Margaret.
Suppose it doesn't get solved and we would go to trial the next time. What would that time commitment look like?
Yeah, so what I can tell you, so you're saying if your district was selected as one of the next trial cases, there would definitely be depositions of individuals with Zoom now. Everything's done virtually. But there is definitely that time commitment. There would be, the superintendent, probably a high school principal, the people that would know the best of the district on these vaping issues. We would have to go and probably work with whoever your IT or someone like that who can provide us documents regarding the discipline numbers, which we never provide student records ever. And so there is a time commitment, but we go through that way, the benefits, and we go, if these cases go and there's great verdicts, it might help saying, maybe it's worth our time to go in and put in this time to go and sit for this.
Does your firm represent the school representatives during their depositions?
Yes.
Okay, so seeing no further questions, do we have a motion?
I move that we move forward. Particularly, the reason I say that is if we have a vaping problem here, I think it shows our commitment to doing something about it. And if we don't, I think it shows that we're not paying attention to what the issues of the school are.
Okay, so we have a motion to join the Juul mass action, and we have a second. Any further discussion?
I mean, I just think if we can manage, even if the settlement is so small, but if it pays for putting detectors in the bathrooms at the high school, it will be worth it. I think I don't see any harm in moving forward. And I like your point, Margaret, about demonstrating our commitment as a district.
I agree with that.
Oh,
You
Melissa.
didn't recognize me.
Sorry.
No.
Sorry, I was just gonna essentially say what you were saying, Terry. If this helps save one kid, I'm for it. And again, if it helps pay for the vaping detectors or more education, and I don't know, whatever if it saves one kid, yes, I'm for it.
I also feel that there's actually a benefit to going through this process. Even if we were to look at things and decide, you know what, we really can't put our hands on the statistics that we thought we could. If anything, then that is a learning process and how we need to, make sure we do our documentation, with corrective action with students and so forth. So regardless of the outcome of this case, I think there are benefits just for going through the process. And I echo with what was said earlier, that it does send a message to our community and other communities that we do take this seriously, because it is an absolute health hazard. They have been banned by the FDA, from even selling their products. And so I think, quite frankly, I think this is an easy one, but I agree with going through it.
Can I just amend what I said? I know I said if it saves one kid's life. What I should have said was if it saves any life, because if there are adults out there that are juuling or doing the smokeless tobacco, and then they see, if they haven't seen yet that it's, a health hazard and terrible and we can't fix it, then I hope that it saves a life. Of course, children, but I shouldn't.
Terry, did you have something else?
Yes, I was thinking with us being in the limelight, parents and other people will probably become more interested. And I mean, I think of that trailer we have that's in plain sight. There'll be more information floating around. Whether anything's won or lost, there'll be more information floating around. So.
And Leah, is your hand still up from before? Do you
No, it's part of the discussion. So I would really like to hear from school administration about this, because I don't know if this is a big issue for our students and our staff. So I just would like to hear from Lawrence and the high school in particular around whether, and maybe this would be through Lori, around whether they would support doing this if they think this is a good idea as the principals and administration for those schools.
In our last meeting, didn't we hear from,
Yeah. I think Lori was going to answer that one.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. So yes, I am in support of this, joining this lawsuit. We know that there are issues with this both through Morse Pond, through the high school. Right now, we don't have accurate data because during the COVID years, we did not have as many issues. It is also very hard to detect. So we don't have a lot of discipline data. It was going to be one of my questions moving forward, since we don't have, but we know through anecdotal information from students and staff that it is an issue. And I just agree, we're sending a loud message by joining this lawsuit that this is important to us. We take this seriously. And again, whatever amount of money that may be awarded to our district, it will be put toward good use, education and or detectors or such that helps us in the end to try to curb this issue.
And Bill, did you have something else you wanted to?
I was just going to say, I think we did hear actually though from, I believe, Mary and Henry, both at our last meeting had spoke to it being a known problem, at least at high school. I think that was kind of what has carried us over at this point.
Yeah, I heard from players, and I assume we'll get an article in the newspaper that will alert the community about what's going on, for those who don't know.
I think that was a push there.
Oh no, that's not a sign.
No pressure.
Throw it in the garbage.
Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote, and we'll start with you, Leah.
Leah Palmer, yes.
Mike?
Michael Heelan, yes.
Bill?
Bill Orfner, yes.
Terry Maderas, yes.
Welch, yes.
Melissa Keith, yes.
Susie, yes?
And Andrew Thorold, I'm also a yes, so it's unanimous.
Thank you, Attorney Shinock.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'll be in touch with you.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Got your first Massachusetts.
Yeah.
We're leading. Can I just say everything?
Mary, thank you for leading us through that, because that was really helpful without letting us go off topic. It was very focused.
And you asked all the questions I had thought of, plus
Exactly.
more that I didn't even consider, so that's great. Okay, so next up we have a series of field trips, which is exciting. So Lori, you want to take us through these?
Yes, and there may be some people in the audience that may want to add something or be able to answer your questions. The first field trip is to New Hampshire. It's the hiking club, and that is actually coming up fairly quickly. And you have a revised document that actually has the actual bus cost. So the total is $1,665 for bus and parking. This is a one-day trip. So no overnight, but it is out of state. Would you like to hear about all three, or would you like to vote one at a time?
I'll go ahead and do one at a time. So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Okay, and any discussion on the field trip to Mount Monadnock?
Just one question. That was the only difference is the price. Everything else is the same. It's hard to tell because I don't have both on side by side.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Quick question. If, and I guess this applies for any of these, but we should take them individually. If there's a student in the hiking club, I notice there's a fee for the student that can't cover that. Or does anybody know if there's like scholarship opportunities or funds available to cover that for the student?
Kate Bell is here, who's doing the field trip. So, but I know at the high school we always would say, you know, discreetly and confidentially, come let us know if the fee is an issue. We will cover it for you.
Okay.
That's what we have said to them. And at this point, the other advisor and I, we were like, we'll figure out a way. So if there is a bit more, you know, specific way other than.
Okay. I just know that's been a focus of other things in the committee,
absolutely.
making sure that we are either giving everybody an opportunity or not giving the opportunity if everybody can't do it. So thank you for clarifying.
We have said that to everyone who is interested.
Outstanding. Thank you.
And it does look like busing has gone up significantly for everyone, which is not surprising, you know, what we know about fuel costs and all of that, but it does make it more of a burden on our students as well. So with that, we go again, a roll call vote. We have Leah.
Leah Palmer, yes.
Michael Heelan, yes.
Bill Dorfner, yes.
Terry Maderas, yes.
Welch, yes.
Melissa Keith, yes.
Susie, yes?
And Andrew Thorold, I'm also a yes. It passes unanimously. Enjoy.
Thank you. If anyone
Sounds
wants to
awesome.
come,
Looks
let me know.
looks like it's going to be a nice weekend. So
Yes.
hope we get good weather. Okay, so the next one to Waterville Valley, Lori.
Yes, so this is a trip. I'm sorry. This is a trip for the to a ski resort. They actually had this trip last year and it was very successful. So we want to repeat that opportunity for students, and the information is there. This is not until January, but we certainly they will fundraise, so they definitely need some time to be able to do that. So I do recommend this trip as well for our students. Again, Bill, it's a very good question. We do always offer scholarships for students that would like to join, but are unable to meet the fees.
And it sounds like they'll have opportunities to fundraise as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Great.
I'll make a motion to accept the field trip request for Waterville Valley in New Hampshire.
I'll second. Kelly, second. Is there any further discussion, questions on this? Okay, roll call, Leah.
Leah Palmer, yes.
Mike Heelan, yes.
Dorfman, yes.
Okay, Karen Beers, yes.
Welch, yes.
Let's keep yes.
Susan, yes.
And Andrew Thorold, I'm also yes, unanimous. I like how you guys make it easy for me.
I love field trips.
It's like the favorite thing to approve.
Yeah.
That and accepting money.
Well, that's great, because we got another one. So Lori, are you gonna start us off?
Yes. So the next trip was a trip that we had last year that we had to cancel. So this is the band course and the theater students headed to New York City. They will actually be staying in New Jersey. But this is pretty much the trip that was planned last year that the school committee approved. And this is one that they definitely need to have a lot of lead time in preparation, fundraising, et cetera. So I do recommend this trip and certainly hope that they'll be able to be able to have the trip this year without any cancellations.
Okay, so Melissa's already made the motion to accept that. Do I have a second?
I'll second again. I did
Okay. And any further questions?
It's a
discussion?
competition.
I'm sorry?
It's a competition. It's a basketball competition.
Oh,
Did you want to know more about it, Margaret?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Because we've got the leader of the band, if you will.
Did you?
You tell me about it, I'm in York.
Great. Yeah, so we're going to be participating in what's called festivals of music. And so they basically have college level adjudicators that'll be listening to our band, chorus, and jazz ensemble and smaller choirs, and then giving them sort of score based on their performance levels and commentary, usually on stage. One of them will step up to the kids and give them a short clinic on their performance. So they take that feedback back to the rehearsal hall and hopefully perform their next concert with all of that in mind. There's a sort of competitive spirit in it, in that, you know, there are some first, second, third, fourth place trophies and things like that that are offered for all the ensembles that come in and compete. But we're hopeful that on the itinerary that maybe the kids get to see one of those acts, which is also really important, of course. But with the time constraints, we're not sure yet. We won't know until we get closer to the date. What else can I tell you?
It's wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, Sarah, I just wanted to be clear that the Falmouth Band parents, the choral boosters, and theater boosters have all agreed to back any of the kids financially if they need support. So all the fundraisers that are going on, they'll be right there to help them ensure that everybody gets to go that wants to go.
Outstanding. I see a tour of Radio City. Is that where they're going to be performing, or?
Hard to know yet.
Okay.
It's a little early, but I'd be happy to report back if you'd like us to.
We'd love to hear.
Yeah, let
Thank
you know where we'll be.
Thank you.
Okay. Did we get a motion about it?
We did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Good.
we're ready to vote then. Leah?
Yes. Leah Palmer, yes.
Mike Heelan, yes.
Dorfman, yes.
Karen Beers, yes.
Welch, yes.
Melissa Keith, yes.
Susan, yes.
And Andrew Thorold, I'm also a yes. I hope you get to go this time.
Me too,
Across
yeah.
everything.
Thank you so much.
Students deserve it.
Thank you for
And
your
trips
support.
to the fast. Yes.
And I'd just like to make a comment and tell all the advisors who do these things, it's monumental work. Thank you for taking the time for the kids, because I know that you won't sleep, you know, and all that stuff. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you might sleep, but I mean, it's
I'll
a
sleep
lot.
on the bus, right?
Yeah.
And when you get home.
All right, next up, we have our annual presentation on our enrollment numbers. So Lori.
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna share my screen. All right, so tonight I'm doing the annual enrollment presentation. We have the 22-23 school year, 3,015 students. That breaks down to 767 at Falmouth High School, 478 at Lawrence, 482 at Morse Pond, 282 at East, 380 at Mullen, 315 at North Falmouth, 267 at T-Ticket, and we have 44 students out of district. This is the enrollment by grade. As you can see, most of the grades are under the 250. We do have 3 grade levels that hit the 250, a little bit over 250. Last year, it was kindergarten, 4th and 7th. They've all moved up a year. So those are our bubble years. We have 254 at 1st grade, 253 at 5th grade, and 251 at 8th grade. And then you can see the varying grades from there. At kindergarten, we do have 209, and I think that was close to what I reported at the last time when we were watching the kindergarten numbers. The school choice trends, as you can see, in 18-19 school year, we had 151. We have 169 in 1920, 166 in 2021, and 21-22, 168, and we have 159 22-23 school year. We always take our numbers of October 1. I will say we've had another student added, so we now have topped out at 160 students school choice for this school year. So our 5-year comparison, as you can see, this trend tends to look like this every year as we keep moving the bar and add a year. In 2019, we had 3,400 students. And again, this year we have 3,015. Our FY21 and FY22 years were only 2 students difference. So the average class size, we have worked hard to keep the class size low, and our community has asked for that 18, 19 average for class sizes. I will say that at grade 5 and 6, this is lower, and we've been able to keep the numbers lower through COVID and extended into this school year. Those typically are at the higher end of the range, but we've been able to keep those low like all the elementary schools. This really has not changed much. This is a snapshot of our district, and these numbers run pretty close for as far back as I can see as far as our demographics of race and ethnicity. This slide has been increasing for some time. With the English language learners, you can see it's 5.4% in the district. Just 4 years ago, we have over the 4-year span, we have increased by 52 students. In special education, you can see right now our percentage is 22%. Over the last 4 years, we have grown by 111 students, and our economically disadvantaged students over the 4 years has grown by 391 students. I think I mentioned last time when we were talking about the economically disadvantaged students that the formula has changed. So I did look up the FY17 through FY22 school years. It was 133% of the federal poverty level. Prior to the FY17, it was 185. So the FY16 school year would be the comparison to this year at the 185%. In FY16, the report was 34.8%. And as you can see, we are at 43.6%. So we have grown quite a percent using the same formula. So just wanted to point that out. We have had quite a bit of growth. The how we determine the income. It's the state participates in the public assistance program, like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, transitional aid to families with dependent children, MASC Health foster care, the certified as low income through a new supplemental data collection process. So there's several ways of reporting it, but the actual percentage is 185% of the poverty level. And that's how it's determined. And I'm going to stop sharing and see if you have any questions.
Questions, Bill?
On page 3 of our thing here, I see that the school choice 5-year trend, that's the students coming into our district from other places, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a bar graph of the last 5 years of Falmouth students who have chosen to go out of the Falmouth School District?
I can tell you last year was 68. We don't, we actually do not get that data until January of each year. So I can't report on what it is this year. It would be easy enough to get the 5-year trend on the students leaving.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, Leah, see your hand.
Hi. So first I have just a comment because I think, you know, sometimes people can look at our numbers and that we're going down in students, but we know, you know, looking into those numbers is really important. So looking at our demographic changes is really important around the needs of our students and families. So, you know, I'm just thinking about our Student Opportunity Act and getting, you know, $2 million to support the needs of students, and that the demographics of our students changing, you know, allows us to get more funds to be able to do this. But I think that as, you know, as we're looking at this townwide, that it doesn't mean we don't need more money when we have, you know, a smaller number of students. It means that our demographics have changed and there's different needs now. So I just want to put that out there. My second part is a question around how this is mirrored in other Cape districts with the trend of less enrollment and the trend of more English learners. I'm not sure how our students with disabilities compares across the years. So I'm just thinking, does this mirror what we're seeing across the Cape? And that's my question.
Thank you, Leah, and you're absolutely right. Our student population enrollment has gone down consistently, and that is consistent across all the Cape towns. And it is thought that the rising cost of living on the Cape and the lack of affordable housing has created. This is a problem that has been discussed at the Cape level for years before I arrived, but certainly it's been a discussion for the last 4 years as well. So you're absolutely correct about that. But our demographics have changed, and I appreciate that you pointed that out. And the needs of our students have changed. So we may have fewer students, but the needs are far greater. In my presentation that I'll be giving in our next meeting, October 25th, I will be sharing the number of counselors, the number of reading specialists, the number of ELT teachers that we have increased over time because of those needs.
Great. Is that all, Leah?
Thank you. Yes.
Anybody else? So Lori, I had a quick question. When you were talking about the our student populations and the subsections there, the new formula for calculating economically disadvantaged, like we've been hearing that for a while. So has that changed again this year, or is that just continuing the change that happened, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago or something?
So the last time they calculated at 185% of the federal poverty level was in the FY16, the 16-17 school year. This school year, the 22-23 school year, it is returning to. So that number reflects the 185% of the poverty level. So for 5 years, it was at 133 and it has increased. There has been confusion about that over the last few years. And I think it's been because of trying to understand like how it's been calculated. But my understanding this year, and I dug into it a little deeper to make sure that we had accurate information, is that we have returned to the 185% of the federal poverty level.
Okay, I'm just trying to do that calculate. That makes it even more significant, the number.
Correct.
High this year. Like
yes.
That's, okay, wow. Great, thank you. All right, any other questions? All right, thanks for that, Lori. Very helpful, thank you. Yeah, very helpful. So next we'll move on to a first read of a whole bunch of policies. And you know the policy subcommittee is always really busy, but this, as you noticed, is really a change that then gets reflected throughout many of the policies that have this language in it. And I'll pass it over to you, Mary, please. So.
Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, so in August, MASC updated some policies to reflect the student discipline policy to reflect new guidance from the federal government on special education students and student discipline. And they also added the reference to the, I don't know why it wasn't added before, but they added the statutes that were created by the law, but they added a reference to Chapter 222, which was the law that took effect on July 1st, 2014, that really revamped Massachusetts student discipline law. So in the student discipline policy, they just added the references to the new guidance and the Chapter 222. For the other policies, there's a new statute that's taking effect October 24th this month, which actually is the result of 2 young women who attended a Mystic Valley Charter School in Walden, and 2 young women, twins actually, sisters, students of color that were consistently disciplined for their hairstyles. And they really pursued this legislation, and Governor Baker signed it. And so what it does is it expands race as a protected class to include hairstyles that are historically associated with race. So MASC went through their policies, and where race appears, they put an asterisk just to say this includes, you know, hairstyles historically protective hairstyles related to race. So we went through Terry and Andrea and Melissa and I and Dr. Dora went through our policies and just made those same additions. And you can see it looks like a lot, but it really is not a huge change. It's just referencing new federal guidance, a new statute, and then for the new statute regarding protective hairstyles.
The policies are already approved. It's just these additions.
Yes.
Yes. So people don't freak out. They have to read the whole policy. Although they should freak out.
Read them. Read everyone.
Yeah.
So Leah, question?
No, sorry, my hand is still up.
Present. Okay.
And you're having tech issues.
I think so. I couldn't put it down. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Try to get my attention if you need me in the future then. So
do we need a motion to approve the changes?
This is just our first read.
Okay.
So we're just have any feedback tonight. If we need to go back to the drawing board between now and our next meeting, it'll likely be on the agenda for the next meeting.
It's pretty straightforward.
It does.
Okay. In that case, we will move along to the superintendent evaluation timeline that we started to discuss last meeting. And Terry, do you want to lead us on this?
Sure. When I went home, I thought it seemed to me there was stress amongst our group over filling out these evaluations. And it's one of the most important things that we do in our job. So I said, I'm going to look around and get some background on this. So I decided to look at superintendent evaluations and gathering data across the country. So I looked at Connecticut, Illinois, and Washington State. I figured I would, go across the country and read through. And their formats are so close to ours. Most of the ones, all the ones I looked at have 4 categories at the end. They have standards that they have to tally. Some people call them strands. So it's a universal thing. And so I'm hoping that we can make it a smoother, happier, kinder, whatever that saying is, evaluation. So what I thought I heard people saying that they wanted a workshop on it. So I'm gonna put out next Tuesday, the 18th, because we usually have school committee meetings from like say 6:30 to 7:30. But if that doesn't work offline, people can let me know, we'll pick some other dates. What I was thinking we could do at that meeting is we could do some homework. So Ryan, could you put up the forms that I sent these to everybody? And Leah sent one this morning that will include in that homework. This is one, I think this form needs a little tweaking. The form before it was, which was similar to this, had things like no opinions, but give data, give actions and everything. So you can look at this over, see if you have any questions about it, and bring it to our workshop. Okay, so that's one thing. The other, yes, and you'll notice one thing I want to stress in this is it asks for the signature of the superintendent. I know we have gotten these before where, not the signature, but when exactly you met with the superintendent. Because one thing I'm hoping we'll do more in general when we evaluate this year is talk to the superintendent more along the way. So homework number 1, look this over. If you have questions about it, okay. Homework number 2, Ryan, that would be the other slide. This is a great rubric from DESE that gives you examples of data gathering. So like if you look in the top column, the third row in the top comments there, one thing that we might want to include that we didn't seem to do last year, but we had done in the past was look at administrative meetings and what they do with those meetings to carry out the superintendent's plan. And there's also one, since we're doing a lot of work with communications this year, I can't see that far away, but I think it's the last entry in the middle column. Does it talk about input from surveys and things that families and stakeholders talk about. So we can find a way to use that. So and Leah sent one that helps you rate the superintendent along the way. If you could look at the one that Leah sent, it's a form that we might have to tweak because it's for superintendents in 1 or 2 year programs, but we could certainly use the information after it. So if we look at those things and come to our workshop with some questions, then we can all be involved in making the process smoother. One thing I wanted to point out to another homework thing is these yellow folders that Lori and Sharon give us every week. They give you an action or a program or something that Lori has discussed at the meeting, and then they give you examples of the standards that used to measure it. So maybe if you could look at more thoroughly, or maybe you already do thoroughly, just make sure you look at them. These things that we get that help documenting the actions that happen during school committee meetings. But one thing I want to stress, say again, is if you look at our timeline, remember we were talking about giving you more time. In the place where you give, instead of having Lori give the whole committee a slide presentation again of the goals, she's going to send them to everybody. That'll be on January 6th. And there's 2 months that you have to meet with Lori, hopefully. And I asked Lori about this, and even though there's 9 people, because aside from the regional schools in the state of Massachusetts, we are one of the largest school committees. So 9 people is a lot of people for Lori to have to deal with. So, but she encourages you after this mid-cycle steps formation is sent out to you, that you read it, you make a point, yeah, I'm gonna repeat, 2 months time to have commentary with her. So back to my 3 states that I looked at their information about, so many of them said informal targeted discussions with the superintendent makes the process so much better, because at the end, you've talked along the way, and at the end, you're not just struck with a bunch of numbers that you have to tally up and everything. So I'll repeat, think of that 2-month time frame. Sharon will schedule an appointment with you. So try to talk to Lori more. Okay, so I did make a change on the timeline from what you saw based upon what people said. The thing that you got in today's packet, you'll notice that originally it said to submit at least 3 or submit 3 observations on January 6th and 3 observations on April 3rd. You see, I changed it to 3 is the minimum, but more are encouraged. And the other change on this timeline was what else people said was to have a workshop. So if you look at the opening paragraphs of the timeline, it said that there's a workshop that will be included for this evaluation, so that if we want to tweak the forms that we use, I think it's better to do it working together, like the thing that Leah had, that Andrea had us do at the retreat this summer, where we were all given situations and we all talked through them together. It was great. So maybe we can all talk through making better observation forms then. So I'm going to say it again. I'm putting out for next Tuesday, 6:30 to 7:30. If you can't make it, offline, send me an email and we'll try to figure out another time when people can make it.
All right, so what we're looking at then is the actual timeline here. Yeah. Is what we're going to be acting on. Are we going to make the motion?
No, I was just going to, in regard to the meeting for the potential workshop, I think if we can work around, I'm certainly willing to work around Margaret, Bill, and Mike's schedules, because they've done this less than, like, you've been doing this for a while. Yeah. So, and so have I. So I just think I think we should really try to make sure that people who have not had the opportunity to sit through previous workshops, I think we should try to plan around that. That's what I was going to say, but I will make a motion.
We can do that offline then. Terry, yes. Will you send that?
I already polled 2 of the new people. So
okay.
Oh, great.
So
okay.
She's on it.
I know.
I'm on it.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the timeline for evaluation.
And any further discussion?
Thank you, Terry, for clarifying and kind of spelling out what we've been working on, and just thanks.
Yeah, and I am 100% behind a workshop, even being a person who's done it multiple times. You just, you can get in your head when you're sitting there doing it on your own, and to know that we're all like it, and because we're getting feedback from each other as well. And so I want to know, how everybody else is interpreting what's in front of them. And so I think this is going to be really helpful going forward.
How long is the workshop?
Well, we'll schedule for an hour, but if it needs to go longer.
I'm wondering, I said I have a patient from 5:30 to 6:30 on next Tuesday. It just happened. So if it could be at 7, I would be most grateful, or 6:45. Because I think being in person is so much better than being on Zoom.
I agree. Okay. Yeah, but we'll work to make sure.
I'm sorry, I hate to say that. But.
That's great. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. So Leah.
Andrea, can I just say something? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to give a little bit of a background around the form that I have submitted and that you guys will see. That is a mid-cycle form. So based on our conversation at the retreat and then last meeting, it was to look at, you know, the goals and the standards in a more mid-cycle way. And so that's what that form is. So it's just basically a narrative that you could put notes in. So I just wanted to put that context. And then I wanted to add how amazing those yellow folders are. And as a way to collect evidence, as you're in the meetings, you can jot down that, you know, notes right in those sections that align to those standards. And you have that to go back to as you're doing your mid-cycle or your end of the year. So I just wanted to add that point because those are wonderful.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I love how all of these little tweaks are just getting us better and better at doing this important work. So while I've got you on, Leah, go ahead and vote.
Okay, yes.
Okay, Mike?
Mike Heelan, yes.
Goldorfer, yes.
Terry Ramirez, yes.
Welch, yes.
Mostly yes.
Susan, yes.
Andrea Thorold, also a yes. So that passes unanimously. And we will then move on to the acting on the actual goals. And we started this discussion last time as well. So Lori, did you have anything additional that you wanted to add to this?
No, I just tried to put more straightforward, just in a document that got down to the specifics. So it's all the same information. I did not add or take anything away from the last meeting, and I did not receive any feedback.
So do we have a motion?
Make a motion.
Ms. Melissa, and a second?
I'll second it.
And Terry, any further discussion on the goals? We'll go ahead and do roll call votes. Leah?
Leah Palmer, yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Goldorfer, yes.
Terry Ramirez, yes.
Welch, yes.
Mostly yes.
Susan, yes.
And Andrea Thorold, also a yes. Unanimous. Thank you very much for that. And I guess we'll keep you here one more time, Lori, to talk about this change in the capital plan related to the tennis court improvements.
Yes, thank you. And I believe Sue Smith is there, and I'd like to invite her up to the table to be able to answer any questions as well. But you have a form in front of you, and you have already voted for the tennis courts done with a asphalt surface, as we discussed last meeting. That total came in at $1,100,000. The town has asked us now to consider a concrete surface tennis courts. That's an increase of $600,000. The idea is that the concrete lasts longer, has projected twice the life with less maintenance. Bill, I think that you had asked a question last time about the students. And so our research has informed us that there's greater consistency with play when they're learning tennis as well as practicing, and that in competitions, it helps develop the skills, because when you reach the state level, all competitions are on concrete. So that's what I was able to find out about that. Again, the town has assured us that the funds are there and that these tennis courts should be considered both school and community tennis courts, and that they do have the funds and would like to put the money toward the funds to move from asphalt to concrete. At this point, I would turn over to Sue to see if she has anything else she'd like to add.
I don't think the town was actually asking you to reconsider the higher cost. I think we just were concerned you weren't presented both options when you voted, so that you can make the best choice for the school for what was being offered.
Yes.
Can you, I think, has FinCom already taken this up?
No, tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
I will need a figure from you guys first thing in the morning.
Okay.
But it did sound, Lori, you said that there was money now.
Yes, the town manager has confirmed and said that they are very much in support of the concrete and the additional cost.
Terry.
Did we talk to like our athletic director and our the person who takes care of the kids if they get injured? Did we poll our own people about this decision too?
Yes, and that's where I got the information about the competitions and the preferred surface. Dr. Harris, principal of the high school, and Kathleen Burke had weighed in on that matter.
And Lori, I just wanted to check on the submission form. I think there's a typo for the current approval amount.
That's not a big enough number.
Just want to make sure that we're clear on what the change is from what to what. Is that
can you tell me what the error is, please?
Paragraph on that request sheet that we have in our packet. It says the current approval is in the amount of, and is that supposed to be 110,000?
Oh, no, it's 1.1. Yeah, you're right. It's an error. It is 1.1 million.
Okay, so
yes, go ahead.
So the numbers, so there's the text section and then there's the spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet says 1.7.
That's correct. Okay. So the asphalt cost 1.1 million that you voted on in July. This increase, if you want to vote going from asphalt to concrete, then it's an increase of 600,000, and you're voting on 1.7 million.
Other questions?
Maybe you just said this last time. I'm sorry if I missed it. Is the concrete going to last longer?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be twice the life. Projected at 25 to 30 years.
And,
sorry if that was answered.
And Lori, it also says with that description of extra life expectancy of the surface, it says less ongoing maintenance. Do you know anything about what that maintenance usually would entail?
Painting.
Yeah, Susan talked about it at our budget meeting. I think you had mentioned, I think it was you that mentioned.
Yeah, the life of the asphalt and how quickly it cracks compared to the concrete.
So that can be significant as well, you know, adding to that number.
Yeah, I think it was about how because it's poured with
expansion joints.
See, I knew it was you. With expansion joints. So when it does crack, it cracks at the edges of the court, not in the middle. Mm-hmm. Whereas with asphalt, you can't control where it cracks, so it just cracks anywhere. Mm-hmm. And then you have to repair it in order to play. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, in general, having something that has lower maintenance costs for the district that are unpredictable is, you know, in my opinion, a much wiser decision. Mm-hmm. Not just because it'll last longer, but we don't know what our finances are going to be like and be able to build that in like we have done for the turf field so intentionally, but we don't have that for this.
And we're on the hook for that.
Correct.
Okay.
And those cracks can also, because the asphalt courts can crack, like you said, anywhere. It could be right smack dab in the middle of the plains, or it also becomes a liability issue if they're not then repaired.
Mike, I see your hand up. You have a question?
No, just to that point about the concrete, is I spoke to someone who owns a racquetball tennis court on the Cape, and they said that what everyone's been saying is that it costs more, but the maintenance does catch up, and if it's not maintained properly, it can become unusable. So I would just like to voice my support for the added money in the concrete.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, to act on this, and then we can continue discussion after that.
Can I make that motion?
Okay, so Melissa's got the motion.
I'd like to make a motion to act on the capital plan increase of the $600,000 for the concrete, for the all things concrete for the tennis courts at the high school.
Great, thank you. And Bill has a second on that. So further discussion, Terry.
So we have no preview as to what the finance committee is going to.
We don't bring it up till tomorrow night.
What would happen if you didn't agree with that? What would we do then? We would just have another vote. Never mind. I don't need the answer.
Well,
Can
I just state, Sue, if the finance committee does not vote for that, would they be voting for the 1.1 on the asphalt? Is that the decision? It's not no altogether, correct?
You put the 1.1 back on the date.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
And then do we know when the warrant closes, when the
figure that will be in the warrant will be whatever you guys, when we vote tomorrow night. We don't go to print for another week.
Another week, okay, thanks.
That's why we were trying to get it settled before.
Yeah, it's so much better than handouts at the door. People are always confused. No one likes that. No one likes that. No, I agree. Okay.
Okay.
May I ask a technical question? Do you follow Robert's rules?
Yes.
I think, do they have to call up their own vote and rescind it? I mean, I don't have.
Do you have to rescind your old vote from July?
From July and then revote? That we have to do that on finance committee.
I don't think we do. I don't think we've done this before. We usually just vote.
Okay, right. Just so we said that so it doesn't.
So by making the motion with the clarification, adding the $600,000 and then the clarifying all things concrete covers us so that we don't have to do a whole revote. But just excellent.
Just making sure it's not.
I like it.
You know how dance on.
Don't worry, you're good.
As I said, I did the wire on the finance committee. I'm here with Sue.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Basically my sister.
Okay, with that.
Different mothers, however.
We'll go to Leah.
Leah Palmer. Yes, sorry.
Michael Heelan, yes.
Bill Dorfner, yes.
Karen Medeiros, yes.
Welch, yes.
Keith, yes.
Susie, yes.
Andrew Thorold also yes. So yes.
All right, fingers crossed.
Thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Can someone get me an exact figure for tomorrow morning?
Will do.
Yes. Thank you.
Great. We have the MASC conference coming up, and with that, the delegate assembly. And so we need to send in a name for a person to represent our school committee for that.
Can I make a motion to nominate you? Or are you going?
I am.
Okay, great. I make a motion to nominate Andrea to be our representative this year.
I have a second. So discussion on that.
Don't you like need a backup?
Oh, yes, we do.
So you can put, not really alternate, but like I'll go to the, so I'll be an alternate if you would like.
Make a motion to have Andrew be our representative and Terry to be our, we're going to call it alternate, but you know, okay, an alternate.
Understudy, if you will.
Yes. Fabulous.
Great. So any additional discussion on that one? And we'll go ahead to vote. Leah?
Leah Palmer, yes.
Mike Heelan, yes.
Bill Dorfner, yes.
Karen Medeiros, yes.
Welch, yes.
Keith, yes.
Susie, yes.
And Andrew Thorold, I'm also yes. Thank you all for that. And I hope we have a lot of people going. The conference schedule is out. You can look at that, and there are a lot of really good sessions. And selfishly, there are a lot of things happening concurrently that I would love to have somebody else there so that we can all split up and get the most out of it. So hope you can make it. All right, so next up.
Is it going to be at
in Hyannis,
the Sheridan or
the conference center? Yeah.
We're so lucky that it's right here.
I mean, I think everybody else feels like it's lucky it's here too. They don't come to the Cape, but makes it easy for us. So, all right. So next up, we're going to have a discussion about the process for summarizing school committee meetings. And this is one of those items coming out of our goals and sort of starting this process as the smaller teams are thinking of ideas and coming up with things. We sort of want to have a process for bringing back that to the group. So once again, we're all responsible for all the goals, even though we have people leading them up. So this will be our sort of first example this year of bringing something back to the larger group for a discussion. Thank you. Is that your way, Kelly? I am, and I'm gonna do it. So I realized that I have a handout, and I apologize for you guys that are not here, but hopefully I can share. There we go. Okay, so now you can see it, even though you're not here. So as we mentioned, the last meeting, the communications group met, and this is sort of an outline of what we're thinking the process is going to look like. So the goal of making these short videos is to have a really concise way for the community to find out what we're doing at school committee meetings without watching our whole meeting. Although it will definitely help you fall asleep at night. So what we're planning on doing is right after the meeting, we'll have one of our members record a really short statement, less than 60 seconds, that just highlights some of the important things that we did. You know, so it'll all be taken from the meeting agenda. It's not going to have a lot of extra content, no commentary, just the facts. And so some examples would be saying, you know, the superintendent updated us on current student enrollment numbers. We voted to approve a number of grants, or tonight it could be we voted to approve a number of field trips. Just the highlights. And then after that recording, that really short recording is made, it'll upload to the Facebook page for the district and have a note on there about where you can find the actual full meeting. That's it, short and sweet. And we're hoping to launch tonight.
We've already lassoed in our first speaker.
Yeah, Bill not so willingly volunteered.
I've been voluntold.
You have notes, you're fine. Yeah. And it'll all be fresh because it's going to be immediately after the meeting. But it's not going to be like this long commentary on all the things we discussed. It's just a way to provide additional easy information to the public. That's it. Any questions? Awesome. Great. Thanks. Well, thank you guys for.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry, Leah.
Will this be translated?
We can close caption it so we can use auto translation in every language.
Okay. Could you hear that?
No.
Yes, it'll be.
Ryan said it'll be closed captioned, and so it can be translated into different languages. But you know, unless we have members who are fluent in other oh, Terry, fluent in other languages, we're not going to be able to turn it around that fast because the goal is to have it posted right after.
I have a question on that. Are the YouTube videos translated of our general meetings?
Again, those are also closed captioned and can be translated.
Okay, so it would just be the same as our YouTube.
Facebook is not able to handle multiple captions.
Okay.
But the one that's there.
Great.
Well, that sounds like the best plan. It keeps consistent with what we're doing, and it'll, you know, being closed captioned will hit all of the things, including the ability to be translated and available to as many people as possible. Terry.
Me, who has been the anti-Facebook person, I would like to thank Kelly. She made a new form for announcing our meetings, and it's colorful, and it's worthy of us to be on Facebook now with these colorful things. No, you all know the reason I objected before is because I didn't ever want commentary back, but now this is just information.
Yeah,
so.
information.
And Kelly did make a very nice announcement this week, so if you look at it.
It would be interesting to just sort of track that over time too, to see what kind of engagement we're getting with it and the value of, you know, that out to the community informally or
Ryan, does it do that? Will it track clicks and engagements? Because if it doesn't reach anybody, we might as well not do it, but hopefully it'll work.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
right.
great.
That's a good way to find out.
Video content does go in front of people more often in terms of Facebook.
I know this is out of order, but in the, when you give member reports, since we're talking about communication, could we just add to that right now?
From the committee, just
yeah.
to plug in this
Yeah.
session. Okay.
Because rather than reintroduce it, I'm wasting time talking about it. Is that right?
Go right
Okay, because Thursday we're having our big first listening session endeavor. We are so lucky it worked into Clipper time. We're able to go into the high school and talk to the kids. And we have 2 sessions already approved and underway at Morse Pond School. We have interpreters. We have 4 VIPS students who have volunteered for daycare. So we're rolling right along, hopefully. So we'll get a lot of people, so.
That was another fabulous flyer that I saw that, was such
It's
around.
all thematic.
And I loved seeing that you took care of the child care, because that's just so helpful.
Well, we stated in our goal this year for communication that we were going to make an effort to include all voices. And so this is the first opportunity to actually make good on our goal.
The big goal for me is Clipper time. Yes, I'm so glad.
Right, well, thank you for moving us along on that. So in terms of moving along, let's go ahead to back to Lori for an update from the superintendent.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Woodward first to talk about Special Olympics.
Thank you, Dr. Dewar. I am very happy to report that the Special Olympic Game Day are going to be back in action. We're able to do that again. Monomoy will be hosting the 2022 All Cape Special Olympics Game Day at Monomoy High School on October 20th with a rain date of the 21st. Very excited to say that there's quite a nice lineup for the day beginning at 9 o'clock and with the arrivals in a opening ceremony. There'll be the Special Olympic oath and torch ceremony, declaration of the games. There's 12 stations that our students will be, well, all students will be able to rotate through. There'll be lunch, half an hour for lunch, then there'll be the awards ceremony. There are 10 stations, activity stations that are more of the sporting events, and then that the teams rotate through. And then there's both an arts and crafts and a sensory station that are available all day. Those are open, they're available for students at any time. We are very fortunate to have students going at all levels. What's important to note at the upper levels, students that participate in our unified sports teams also get to attend, and they support our student athletes and all the participants as they rotate through the events. So as I said, I'm very excited that the games are open again, and we have 28 students from Falmouth High School attending, 6 students from Lawrence attending, 11 students from Morse Pond attending, 18 students from T-Ticket attending, and 5 from North Falmouth Elementary School. So we're very excited for that. Be happy to report out on how the games go after the 20th. But if all parents are welcome to go, we're providing our students with transportation here to Monomoy and back. And if anyone has any additional questions or follow-up, I am happy to share that out, or you can, all of our special ed building administrators in each one of our buildings can provide more detailed information about the specific schools. Turn it back to you, Lori, or unless anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay, and so I'd like to talk a little bit about the Hispanic Heritage Month. Although we try to celebrate all through the year and integrate our learning within our curriculum, It is National Hispanic Heritage Month from mid-September through mid-October. And so we certainly try to focus on the culture, traditions, history, geography, and our renowned and celebrated individuals of the Hispanic culture throughout all the grades and across the grades. But just to highlight a few things, we still learn from scholastic news. And so all fifth graders, there was a high interest article. It was highlighting history, a new exhibit in the nation's capital honors Latina cultures in the United States. And so the kids were very engaged in that. In other classrooms, they were learning about influential individuals. The Hispanic heritage students would select someone, learn more, and be able to share more about the individuals. In music class, students were learning about influential individuals throughout the music and just the various genres, the styles, instruments, and the singers. In the libraries, we were certainly introducing new books and by authentic Hispanic authors, books with characters. FEF gave a grant to one of our schools to purchase a new and varied multicultural book featuring Hispanic authors. Some of the students were learning how to say hello and good morning and using that to greet each other. We had bulletin boards and display cases and such throughout this past month. I think what's really important is that we're trying to integrate all of this throughout the school year and making steps in that direction. But just wanted to let you know that our schools were recognizing and celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. Next on our agenda is our beloved community forum. I'm going to turn that over to Henry.
Hi, everyone. So on the 29th of September, we gathered at the library, at the public library. About less than 60 people were present. It was a nice turnout. The thing that really that I was stressing is that equity work is not just a director's job or administration or teachers, but it's a community. And so this was a time the community can get together and start on equity work. One of the things that really got to me with teachers were time together, that they would come together and just start talking to one another and reflecting some of the issues. And I've always been really fortunate to hear that among teachers. And now I got to see the community members just figuring ways on how we can help our kids. It's the forum started off with a vision display and then 3 powerful stories that were expressed by students, and they set the stage. And so after that, then it was basically community members having the floor and discussing, okay, what can we do? What's next? What's the next steps? So we did about an hour and a half, and then I gave them some tools to take home, and we'll be preparing for another session after that. But I think we grow in our equity walk with this discussion to be aware of others, to see what we can do. And the focus always has to be the kids. So I love those stories from the kids that express where, problems may occur, and then we take it from there. So I think it was a very good first step, and I don't want it to stop. So that's going to be the plan.
Thank you, Henry. And we heard a little bit from Dr. Tellier at our last meeting about the upcoming Professional Learning Day, a day of belonging. I'd just like Sonia to follow up a little bit, since we had the Day of Belonging on Friday. Sonia?
Thank you, Dr. Dort. It was our first ever full-on in-district conference, and we built on what we'd begun at the beginning of the year with Choice B and having a great number of our workshops be teacher-led. Some more facilitators that we had seen in August, and then we had many new ones join. And we also had a student panel speak in the morning, and we had a couple of students that were scheduled to be through the day. And we had a number of community partners come in, and we had a partner expo also as part of the day. So throughout the day, we focused on community building, both for strategies we can use in instruction, but also just to work our way through difficult conversations with students and build community in our classrooms. And so again, I had an opportunity to share with you that the Falmouth Rotarians had provided a grant. So the t-shirts that you have at your spots are the t-shirts that we purchased through the grant and gave to everyone, including the community partners who joined us on Friday. So thank you for that chance to share.
Thank you, Dr. Tallier. I just want to give a brief update on the equity audit. So we are getting close to finalizing. Henry has contacted over 16 organizations, narrowed the scope down to a panel of 7. We did 7, sorry, not a panel, interviews with 7 different organizations. And then with the administration team, and then we narrowed it down to 2. We did second interviews, and we are now checking references between the second. We are hoping to have a decision before the next school committee meeting and invite the group that we feel most matches the district. I just want to add that all of the organizations have been high quality. It's been a very tough process because there's been just so many we know that could add value to our district with the audit, but also the ongoing support, consultation, and professional learning that so many of the companies have offered. So we are getting close, and just wanted to let you know that, and hopefully we'd be able to bring before you at next school committee the selected organization. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mary. You have school committee binders in front of you. And I've asked Mary if she would just walk through the binder for everyone. So Mary?
Sure, thank you, Dr. Doerr. So I'm just going to provide a high-level overview. I'm going to go through it, but if, especially with new members, if you want another workshop, I'd be happy to lead a workshop to go through and go into it in a little more detail. Right in your cover, you have a Robert's Rules little cheat sheet reference guide, which is very helpful. The first tab is your operating protocols, obviously, that you discuss and sign every year. And there's just a few there that one of the things, number 4, I think is always interesting. Acknowledge that a school committee meeting is a business meeting of the school committee that is held in public, not a public meeting, because we always refer to it as a public meeting. What that really means is it's a nod to the First Amendment. There's something called a complete open public forum versus a limited or designated public forum. And that's what a school committee meeting is. And it means that the topics that are discussed are the ones on the agenda so it's not a complete open forum where anybody and anyone can say anything and deliberate on anything. So it's basically an open meeting held in public subject to the open meeting law. That's what that means, if that makes sense. Obviously there's protocols in here about respect, strive to avoid surprises, channel questions properly, and just distinguishing your school committee member role versus your role as an individual out in the community. The second tab is just directory information, which is helpful. I don't think I have to review that. The third tab is the policy. It's not the whole policy manual, but it's a list. And I will say, I think it's a lot to read through, but I think it's for every school committee member to get familiar with all of the policies. And if at all, I think it's section B, that's board governance and operations. Most of the policies that relate to the school committee itself and how you operate and communicate are in B, although there are some in a couple other areas as well. But I think it's really, really important to be familiar with all of the policies. Oh, the budget development flow chart, which you're all familiar with. I don't think I have to go through that. And obviously your school committee evaluation subcommittee, you're doing your job. You're having a workshop on that, so you're doing that. Tab 6 is the school committee member handbook. Similar to the policies, this is really important to read through cover to cover. This really, it's identical. I'm pretty sure it's identical to the MASC school committee handbook. And it really does just define your role. You know, we have student handbooks and school handbooks, and this is really an excellent resource for you. One of the things I think in here that's interesting is on page 3, they talk about the challenge of school committee service. You know, you're now a school committee member who's out there for public input, but also public scrutiny. And many of the issues that school committee members have to deal with is citizen complaints and how to manage those properly. So I think it's just really important to read through here and be familiar with the handbook. It also emphasizes the MASC Code of Ethics, which you have your own Code of Ethics too, which I'll get to in a little bit because that also involves the conflict of interest law. I'm trying to think of, one of the things in here, and I think it's in the protocols, I think it's in the handbook. Do your homework before school committee meetings because it's always appreciative when come prepared. I know I've seen school committee meetings, not here, in other districts where school committee members ask questions that are already, the information is answered in the material that you have. So it's obvious when someone hasn't, you know. I've heard MASC representatives say when they see a school committee meeting and we don't have sealed envelopes here, but when they break the seal at the meeting, you know they haven't done their homework and read the materials ahead of time. So and it's helpful because if you are familiar with it ahead of time, then you come prepared with questions. I'm trying to see, I've made notes for myself here. So number 7, this is the open meeting law guide. Again, this is really important. It's a lot to digest here. I think a couple of the things that really school committees get caught up in is violating the open meeting law by a quorum deliberates not in their open meeting. So for example, there may be an email and you reply all and you start talking about issues that you're deliberating on. That's a deliberation and that's a violation of the open meeting law because it's not taking place at your meeting that's held in public. The Attorney General has an excellent website, the open meeting law. They have FAQs, training materials. They have Attorney General determination letters to see how other, not just school committees, but other, you know, public boards have gotten themselves into trouble with complaints. And one thing that I think is interesting, and I'll just read from the Attorney General, I wrote it down. This is about deliberating. Expression of an opinion on matters within the body's jurisdiction to a quorum of a public body is a deliberation, even if no other public body member responds. For example, if a member of a public body sends an email to a quorum of a public body expressing their opinion on a matter that could come before the school committee, this communication violates the open meeting law, even though no one else responded. So it's just really, really important to remember that type of thing. Another common misconception is that all board-related communications are subject to public disclosure, and that's under the public record law more, but even emails and text messages, even if they're on your personal email or your personal phone, can be subject to the public records law. So that's important just to keep in mind. Number 8, tab 8 is ethics and conflict of interest. So these are just the policies that you have for the oath that you took as oath of office and your code of ethics. Very important to be familiar with these. BCB is the conflict of interest, which all municipal, actually all public employees have to, you know, abide by the conflict of interest law. One of the tabs in here that's been added is a very helpful school committee members' explanations of the conflict of interest law, specifically for school committee members. I think it's the 4th, 4th page in, or 4th page in. So I won't go through that, but I think, and then there's a good summary of the conflict of interest law for municipal employees after that. And there are certain times where just because you have a conflict of interest doesn't mean that you even have to recuse yourself from something, but you may have to file a disclosure. So we've included in here the most common disclosures that are required. There's a whole list of the different disclosures that municipal employees have to file, but 3 in here I think are particularly important. One is, and it's not just for school committee members, it's for any supervisory school official. So it's me, it's Sonia, it's principals, it could be assistant principals, anybody who holds a supervisory role, which school committee members also do. It's about advocating for your own child through a school. You're required to file a disclosure for that. It's not that you can't advocate, it's just if the conflict of interest law requires a disclosure. There's also a disclosure required for if you have any financial interest in something that may come before the school committee. And that's the second form there. And these disclosures are filed with the town clerk. And then there is another disclosure, just if you think that there's an appearance of favoritism or influence that you may have in a matter, you're required to file that disclosure as well. And in your binder, there's not just the forms, but there's instructions on when it applies and what you have to do to comply with the disclosure forms. 9 through 12 are, I believe they're the FEA contracts, which again, I really encourage you to read through those and be familiar with them because it is important. We are in a negotiation year right now, but it's very important to become familiar with the contracts. And then, I think that's, and 13 through 15 are other union contracts, not non-FEA. So there's the Teamsters Union, the Secretaries Union, and the Food Service Union. So again, be familiar with those contracts. And then number 16 is a non-union document that is currently under review, and it's not a contract, but it's guidelines regarding their benefits and their job responsibilities. Non-union personnel, just by definition in the way it works here in Falmouth, they don't have individual contracts.
Mary, is that why we don't have them?
Yes, and I think it says, does it say under review or say yes? Okay. Yeah, we're updating it right now.
Thank you.
Yeah. But like I said, obviously that's a very quick and brief overview. I'd be happy though to go in more depth if anybody would want me to.
Anybody have questions? I think this is a good place to pause while we've got Mary to answer. Terry?
Could everybody take the newly voted timeline and replace the one that's there in the evaluation? That's the old one, because we just voted on the new one.
Thank you.
I don't have it. So rather than have to, it's in your packets. You just take that right out and put it in the book.
Yep, we will do that, or we will get them into the people who aren't here.
Just so that Sharon will have to close.
Yeah, no reason. What number is it? 3. Other questions? We're all set over there?
She didn't have the Robert's Rules cheat sheet in her.
Yeah, I don't think I do either.
Oh,
So,
okay, then maybe that's just in my book. Sorry.
It's in mine.
It's in yours too?
We'll get everybody sorted.
We'll get
and,
everybody those, yeah.
Ask for anything of that list that you didn't see in there. I did want to say, like, the listing of the policies, you know, one of the things that we've done on our website that is so good is it makes it easy to update, and it's also searchable. Because sometimes, you know, you were saying it's a good idea to read through them. And I'll tell you, going through the 10-year policy review we did, where we read every single policy, it was great on one hand, because, you know, it made you read everything. But it also, you know, I might be a little bit familiar with those codes, but boy, they're just, you know, seem to have no rhyme or reason to them. So being searchable, you can put in topics and come up with what you want. And I do appreciate all the pieces of the conflict of interest, because I remember when I came on, we had town council come in as part of our workshop and go through all of that. I learned a lot from him when we had that, especially all these pieces that apply. It says, you know, municipal employee, and as school committee members, we are considered municipal employees. So all of those pieces do apply to us, and I would not have realized that without having gone through that. And I'm sure if there's anybody that needed some additional training on that or just wanted to go through that again, we could always talk about getting town council in again to, you know, give that little workshop.
I actually had a question related to it, because even though you said I didn't need to read the whole policies all over again, of course, you know, I read some of them. And in the school committee one, it reminded me that we're supposed to redo the conflict of interest training every 2 years. So you do it, you only have 30 days to do it when you first join school committee, but then you're supposed to do it again every 2 years. And I tried to go back through my emails and figure out when I did it last, but I have no way of figuring it out. It's not in there. So yeah. I'm hoping, and I had it down for my follow-up information that I think we could all use.
Is that
reminder.
The ethics?
Yeah,
or
it's ethics and conflict of interest, I think it's called. I don't know, I just was reading them.
I know myself, I haven't done it since the beginning, and we don't seem to get notifications about when we're due, or it would be really nice to just have a regular link so we all stay up to date on that.
Yeah, and it goes to Michael Palmer, so if we can, we probably all need to know when we're due, is my point. Oh, and for those forms for filing your disclosures and things like that, town council is awesome, because I had to do one time and you just call them and they walk you through it. It's super easy.
Any other questions on our new binder?
Love it.
Thank you very much, because that's, yeah, it's helpful to have everything in one place and we don't have to go searching for it. Lori, did you have additional items?
I do. For the second meeting in a row, I get to make a special announcement. I wanted to let you know that the Massachusetts Science Educators Hall of Fame announced Chris Brothers will be inducted as a new member during the Massachusetts Science Education Leadership Association annual conference, which will be on October 26th. And then in addition, she's going to be honored at the Massachusetts Science Teachers Association on November 8th. So congratulations to Chris Brothers.
So far, and it's so great.
Yeah.
She is great. Wow, that is really great news.
And that concludes my update tonight. So thank you very much.
All right, that was a good update. Great, thanks. So I guess we'll move on to routine business and approving the school committee minutes from September 27th.
To approve the school committee minutes from September 22nd.
Excuse me, September 27th, 2022. Do we have a motion?
I'll second it.
And a second from Kelly. Did anybody have any edits or changes? I didn't see them. Okay. With that, we'll go ahead to roll call vote, starting with Leah.
Leah Palmer, yes.
Mike Heelan, yes.
Bill Walker, yes.
Jerry Medeiros, yes.
Welch, yes. Melissa Keith, yes.
Yes.
Andrew Thorold, also a yes. Pass. And moving on to committee member reports. Any committees that have anything to update us on?
Thank you, Terry, for earlier plugging our listening session.
Yes, we've got a couple things. We've got the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging advisory committee update. So the forum. All right, we'll keep it short and sweet then. See anybody online? And any requests for information? Yeah, pictures in. Okay. Well, with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Second.
What's the motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were making a motion. Sorry. I'll make the motion to adjourn. Sorry.
Second.
And Bill second that. And it's a roll call. Leah.
Leah Palmer, yes.
Mike Heelan, yes.
Bill Walker, yes.
Jerry Medeiros, yes.
Welch, yes. Melissa Keith, yes.
Susie, yes.
Andrew Thorold, also a yes. We're adjourned.
Thank you.